He's the breeder. And
What do you
needs
ask
to
him?
I'm
go
just saying
out
who
to
eats
his
these
nest.
normally. Does he
Ron.
Oh, up there,
Ron.
you give
Ron.
them to him and he gives them to the.
Well, you can
Oh,
say
yeah,
it.
you
Ron.
give them to Ron.
Yeah. Use the word go.
You're the Ron.
I do.
That must be the question.
That's how I ask.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with that.
Okay.
Because if you don't understand what it says, and I say that.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to this virtual and in-person service of the Idaho Falls Unitarian Universal Church on the 15th day of December 2024. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. If you're watching online, please sign into the chat box so that we might know who's watching, and it will enable you to share your joys and concerns. I'm Ron Golan. I will be assisting Reverend Evan Carson in the service this morning. The tech person is Vic Allen, and Marty Carson will be the Time for All Ages, and I guess we'll have remote music this morning. Announcements. I have one from Karen Schaefer. The Happyville Farm, our community food basket source for fresh greens, finished a fundraising effort. The goal was $8,000, and there were 91 people participated, and they raised over $10,275.
Nice.
This will open the for an additional gift of money for seeds. I think it's a matching gift for seeds, another hoop house, and an electric refrigerator to store recently picked ponies. So that was a good thing. Are there any other announcements?
Yes, I just want to remind people that we're starting to get some gifts in to hand out to children and adults, whatever size, whatever person fits the size, to not forget that little basket on the side of the tree, please.
What kind of things?
Warm things.
Just warm clothes.
You know, I mean, we'll send them to the women's shelters, and last year I took a bunch of stuff to the City of Refuge. So it's just warm gloves, hats, socks is generally what we give them. Yeah.
So any warm clothing that could be used by people in
Yes,
need.
yes, please, thank you.
Wonderful. Any additional announcements? Okay. I guess the main thing is, please silence your cell phone.
Yes.
I almost forgot to do that myself. Okay. And please write any joys and concerns on a slip of paper back in the corner, and we'll read those later. And people online can write them in the chat box. At this time, we will have our community greeting.
Yeah, I want a little late.
Hey, good morning, Doug.
What's your name?
Good morning.
Yeah.
What's that? Kate. Well, that's.
Morning, Doug. Good morning, Vic. Hey, Arthur. Good to see you. Good to see you too.
Yeah, thank you. I know, right? I was a little late.
You look so lonely back here, but I have to say good morning to you.
Hey, how do you doing?
As you're settling down, I want to make one more quick announcement. Next Sunday, we're going to be doing our solstice celebration, and so if you're invited to bring an object if you like. We're going to create our solstice altar up here. So if you want to bring something that reminds you of the solstice of the season and say something about why it's important to you, we'll add to our altar. So you don't have to, obviously, but we're going to be doing that next Sunday. Someone make that announcement today. Thanks.
And now let us prepare ourselves for worship. Let's calm our hearts, our minds, our breathing. Breathe deeply in and out, listening to your breath as I ring the peace bowl 3 times. Our church's covenant helps us remember why we are a part of this faith and why we give our time and our resources to this congregation. If you so choose, please recite along with me the covenant that this church congregation has chosen to live by. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. At this time, we will light our chalice. As we ignite this flame, may it represent the warmth of love, the clarity of wisdom, and the transformative power of community. Let it guide us on our journey of shared exploration and understanding.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our call to worship this morning comes from the Charter of the United Nations. We, the people of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations, large and small, to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom, and for these ends to practice tolerance and to live together in peace as good neighbors, to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security, to ensure that armed force shall not be used save in the common interest, to employ international machinery in the promotion of the economic and social advancement of all people, have resolved to combine our efforts to accomplish these aims. This morning I invite you now to join in a responsive reading, number 576, which is found in the back of your hymnal, number 576. You can remain seated. It's fine. Get there. The people's response will be in italic. If recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and I am white,
it will not matter.
If you are female and I am male,
It will not matter.
if you are older and I am younger,
It will not matter.
if you are progressive and I am conservative,
It will not matter.
if you are straight and I am gay,
It will not matter.
if you are Christian and I am Jewish,
It will not matter.
if we join spirits as brothers and sisters, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter.
In this spirit, we build community and move toward restoration.
I invite you now to join in singing our opening hymn, number 228, Blessed Royal David City. Please rise in body or spirit.
Once in royal David City stood a lowly cattle shed, where a mother and her baby in a manger for his bed. So may we, when life turns hard, find in love our stay and guard. Shepherds came to see this wonder and to kneel in holy awe at that lowly stable manger where the infant lay on straw. So may we this happy morn honor every child that's born. From homage to the infant, offering gifts both rich and rare. So may we our gifts bestow, whether we are high or low. In that happy Christmas spirit, hear the angels from on high sing their ancient salutations. Joy's a gift we cannot buy. So may we our hearts that sing share the truth this season brings.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, I do not bring you a Native American tale, but I do bring you a story about Dorothea Dix. The title of the short story is Barn School, Free School by Janine K. Grossmeyer. The story is about Dorothea Dix, a Unitarian teacher and a social reformer who lived from 1802 to 1887. Finish eating your supper, Anna, said Florence. We mustn't be late to school. Anna nodded and ate another spoonful of soup. She was happy to get a piece of potato in the warm, salty broth instead of only cabbage. Usually she ate slowly to make the food last longer, and usually after supper she stayed home. But she had turned 6 years old yesterday, and so tonight her older sister Florence was taking her to school. Why can't I go? Her older brother Michael asked. He had finished his soup. You've already been, their mother answered. 2 full years at the public school. Now that you're 12, you need to work. And you two girls need to be quick. Off you go. Anna finished her soup. Then she and Florence put on shawls and bonnets and kissed their mother goodbye. Their father was a sailor away at sea, so they couldn't kiss him. He had left 2 years before. Anna didn't remember him very well. Outside, the city of Boston smelled of dead fish and wet rope, as always. Down on the harbor, the white sails on the tall ships snapped and billowed in the breeze like sheets hung out to dry on a clothesline. How far do we have to walk? Anna asked, as she and Florence went down the alley. They lifted their skirts to keep them out of the mud and hopped over puddles. Not far, Florence answered. The school is at the teacher's house. In her house? Anna asked, wondering if they would meet in the kitchen. Not in her house, at her house, behind it. The school is in a barn. Now Anna wondered, would they meet a stall? Are there horses? She asked hopefully. Or chickens? No, said Florence. The family doesn't keep horses or chickens anyhow. The barn is clean. I would have liked a chicken, said Anna wistfully. Or a goat. The girls waited for a horse and cart to go by so they could cross the street. The horse's tail and mane were the dark, cold gold color of straw, and its coat was a deep brown that looked red in the evening sunshine. Mother said a horse with those colors were called chestnut, just like the shiny, dark brown nuts that people roasted to eat at Christmas time. The horse's hooves clip-clopped on the cobblestones as it went up the hill. The cart creaked along behind. The cobblestones felt cold and rough through the thin soles of Anna's shoes. She hoped Florence might get a new pair of shoes before winter and to give her old shoes to Anna to wear. They would have thin soles too, but at least they wouldn't squeeze her toes. What will we do at school? Anna asked next. After prayers, we sit at a long table and do lessons. We read and spell and do sums. Sometimes the teacher tells us about stars. or how the mountains were made. In the summer, we learned all about flowers almost every day. Anna was pleased. She liked flowers and stars, and she wanted to learn about mountains, for she had never seen one. "What is the teacher's name?" Anna asked. "Miss Dorothea Dix," Florence told her. Anna repeated the name silently to herself, so she wouldn't forget, and practiced saying, "Good evening, Miss Dix," under her breath. She hoped Miss Dix would like her. Anna could tell from the houses that they were getting close to the school. Instead of small wooden houses with unpainted shutters like the ones she lived in, the houses on this street were very large, with window panes of glass. They had tall brick chimneys and shining brass handles on their doors. Many houses had barns out back. Some even had gardens. The girls passed a fine brick church. On the other side of the street, Anna saw a dozen girls in pretty dresses sitting in a garden. All of them were busy sewing. "Is that the school?" Anna asked, for she knew 12 girls couldn't all be sisters. "That's Miss Rosen's Female Academy for Young Ladies," Florence said. "Girls come from all over the country to attend. I hear it's very expensive." "Is our school expensive?" Anna asked, suddenly worried. Their family couldn't afford an expensive school. Their family couldn't afford new shoes. Some days, they couldn't afford food. Mother worried about money all the time. "No," Florence said, "our school is free." "Free?" Anna repeated in surprise. "Free," her sister said firmly. "During the day, Miss Dix teaches a class for young ladies, and they have to pay. In the evening, Miss Dix teaches children like us, and it's free." Anna didn't know how many people who did things for free. Why does she do it for free? Miss Dix believes it's everyone's duty to help each other. She says those who have enough have a special duty to give to those who don't. Some people give money. Miss Dix gives a school. She smiled and Anna said, "A school in a barn." She didn't mind a school in a barn. She was just glad to have a school. Their family couldn't afford to pay, and girls couldn't go to public schools like their brother had. Their mother had never been to school at all. "A free school," Anna said. "A barn school." She liked the sound of that so much. She said it again, skipping along with the words, "Barn school, free school, barn school, free school." Florence started skipping too. "Barn school, free school," they chanted until they finally, Florence stopped. "Here's the barn," she said, "and here's the school." In front of them was a very large house in a garden. Beautiful flowers lined all the paths. Anna realized that the air didn't smell like dead fish and wet ropes anymore. It smelled soft and fresh and sweet. Off to one side was a little cottage, and farther back was the barn. A row of trees stood tall against a fence. "Those are the Dix pear trees," Florence said. "Miss Dix's grandfather developed them years ago. The pear I brought home last month, it grew from those trees." Well, Anna remembered that pear. She and her mother and brother and Florence had each had one slice. Anna had never eaten a pear before, and she had thought it was the most delicious thing in the whole world. Her grandmother lives in the cottage along with Miss Dix, Florence explained as they walked down one of the paths between the beautiful flowers. They rent the big house to other people. And they let us use the barn for free, Anna said in delight. She might have started skipping and chanting, barn school, free school, barn school, free school again, but then she saw Miss Dix standing at the door of the barn. Miss Dix was tall and slender. She wore a pretty blue gown with tiny white ruffles at the sleeves and a soft white shawl at her shoulders. She wasn't old at all. Her hair was a deep brown touched with red, just like the chestnut color of the horse. Good evening, Florence, she said. Her voice was soft and sweet, just like the scent of the air. Good evening, Miss Dix, Florence replied. Good evening, Miss Dix, Anna repeated, just as she had practiced. This is my sister Anna, Florence explained. She's 6, and she wants to learn. Good evening, Anna, Miss Dix said, and her smile was as beautiful as the flowers. Welcome to the school. I'm glad you're here. Anna smiled back. Thank you, Miss Dix. I'm glad I'm here too. They went inside, and Florence showed her where to hang their shawls and their bonnets. As Anna sat at the long table and started on her very first lesson, she chanted very softly, barn school, free school, and then she whispered, thank you, Miss Dorothea Dix. We will now share the joys and concerns and sorrows of the congregation.
Reverend Kevin will light a candle as I read the joys and concerns. From Molly, a joy. Anxiously awaiting a new grandson. Joy at the prospect, but concerned for mom and baby. Hoping all goes well, of course. Wonderful. From Victoria, a joy. Yes, the streets are icy, but finally we have some moisture. Hallelujah. My dogs are so happy to read this morning. I'll bet they are. And from Judy Stanley, joy, concern, and sorrow. All our emotions are all over the place. Enjoy it when we can. Are there any joys or concerns in the chat box?
Not today.
We will light one
I have
additional
another
candle.
one. It's Cindy Logan's birthday today.
Ah,
She
happy
just
birthday.
turned 30.
Yeah. Cupcakes for you and the coffee.
So, happy birthday.
Yes.
And we will light one additional candle for those joys and concerns we hold in our hearts.
Our reading this morning comes from a Facebook post by my friend Aziz Abu Sarah. When I went to Israel and Palestine in 2013 with a group of students from faculty from my seminary, I met Aziz Abu Sarah, who is a Palestinian journalist and peace activist, and who co-founded the company Mejdi Tours, which hosted our trip. We have remained friends on Facebook ever since. Just after we completed our trip, Aziz was headed to Syria to meet with refugees, and a few days ago, he posted the following in response to the downfall of the Assad regime. I visited Syria in 2013 with my friend Nusha Kabawat, and my heart has remained there ever since. The generosity, resilience, and unwavering love of Syrians have left an indelible mark on me, inspiring everything I do. I took these photos, referring to 4 photos he posted, while visiting camps for internally displaced Syrians, millions who eventually ended up leaving Syria unsure if they'll ever return home. In my work on Syria, I've also listened to the harrowing stories of innocent Syrians who endured unimaginable torture in Assad's prisons, electric shocks, brutal beatings, sexual abuse, and starvation. The full scope of these crimes against civilians is beyond comprehension. Yet, despite everything, they never gave up on their dream of safety, dignity, and freedom. Their resilience is a powerful reminder of the human spirit's strength. For the first time in years, my Syrian friends are celebrating the realization of their hope. It feels like a shift, a glimpse of the possibility for a better future. They are not naive, they understand the challenges ahead, but today is worthy of celebration. In 2012, Assad had a chance to step down and allow a transitional government to save Syria from destruction. Instead, he chose to cling to power, sacrificing countless lives and devastating the nation. His selfishness is a cautionary tale for leaders everywhere. Will other leaders learn from his mistakes and choose differently? Change can spark hope, and hope has the power to transform not just one country, but an entire region. So could Assad's fall trigger a domino effect? In 2011, the fall of Tunisia's regime sparked revolutions across the region. Could history be repeating itself? And will leaders choose a better path than Assad? Aziz concluded his post with a familiar Arabic quote from the Islamic Hadith literature by Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad. The reign of a corrupt regime lasts but an hour, while the reign of a just system endures until the end of time. An offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received. One of the things I like about the Christmas season is that as people reflect on the mythical nativity story of Jesus, they often reimagine the story in modern terms. It is a good story, despite its historical improbability. And it is easy to draw parallels between the difficult journey of Joseph and Mary to Bethlehem, where they find no room in the inn and are forced to birth their child in a stable, with migrant families today who make very real, even more perilous journeys in the hopes of finding a better life, or at least escaping oppression and even death. I've seen many nativity scenes where artists have depicted the Holy Family as brown-skinned migrants, such as the one I have, which depicts the Holy Family with their few worldly possessions riding atop a small bus, a scene all too common along the migrant pipelines in many countries. It is easy to feel an emotional connection to such images, despite the fact that few of us have ever been forced to make such a journey with our own families. We can see the harsh reality of their stories in the news. And almost everyone can relate to the love of parents for a child. We can easily imagine the hopes and dreams in the hearts of migrant families. Even those who are vigorously opposed to immigration reform often are sympathetic when pressed on the subject, though they usually end up saying something like, I would do the same thing if I were in their shoes, but we can't take in everybody. Their compassion has practical limits, of course. What the reimagined nativity scenes don't include are the violent thugs of the drug cartels and political strongmen who are often the root of the problem. Those who come here undocumented and desperate are rarely the murderers and rapists that some cynical politicians have labeled them. They're just ordinary people who love their families and want to live without fear. Yes, they want a better life and economic security like all of us desire. But they are human beings who are not here to steal American jobs and in fact have proven to be a net positive influence on America. And regardless of their legal status, they deserve to be treated with dignity and compassion. Our southern border with Mexico gets most of the attention in America's news coverage about migrants. But we know there are migrant crises all over the world, caused by wars and other violence, and human rights abuses of all sorts, especially violence against women. On top of this, we've already begun to see climate refugees relocating from parts of the planet that have become impossible for the nurturing of human life. The long civil war in Syria, which just recently resulted in the downfall of the Assad regime, was in fact partly fueled by a changing climate that made agriculture in parts of Syria impossible to sustain. Human rights abuses are common in such desperate situations, and they spill over into the countries that receive the refugees fleeing for their lives, even in America. Their stories, and even a single image can break your heart. When I showed my wife the photo of the Syrian girl I chose for the cover of today's order of service, she wondered aloud, is she even still alive? We don't know, of course. This was one of 4 photos Aziz included with his Facebook post. And since they were taken in 2013, and it appears the girl was perhaps 6 to 9 years old at the time, she would be around 17 to 20 today. We can hope that she has remained safe either in Syria or after taking refuge in a neighboring country. But we will never know. She is a symbol of the millions of people who find themselves in harm's way every year and are forced to seek refuge. In the Syrian girl's case, her own government ruthlessly bombed and even used chemical weapons against its citizens who opposed the oppressive dictatorship that rules Syria for decades. Refugee camps in neighboring countries along the border with Syria quickly swelled beyond capacity, with hundreds of thousands of people. Even the worst day of U.S. border control doesn't begin to compare. And this is only one example. Millions of people are making perilous journeys every year. And anti-immigrant sentiment and the degradation of human rights for women and a host of historically marginalized groups are as rampant as ever in many parts of the world. America has long been the exemplar that the world looked to for inspiration about human rights. But now, the incoming administration has promised to end the constitutional right of birthright citizenship and to enact the, quote, largest mass deportation of migrants in history, potentially rounding up and deporting over 11 million men, women, and children. Women's rights and LGBTQ plus folks are also in the crosshairs. Transgender folks have become especially demonized as favorite targets for many state and federal lawmakers, including here in Idaho. There is also open talk of a national ban on abortion and potentially setting aside the federal protection of marriage equality. Many on the right would like to see marriage equality thrown back into the chaos of individual state laws. And such a decision could even open the door to restoring state-level restrictions on interracial marriage. Many of our fellow citizens would welcome a return to pre-1950 laws, believing that our country will be saved somehow by returning to a mythical good old days period that never really existed. I think and hope that there are enough reasonable people around to thwart such misguided notions from coming to pass. But given the results of the recent election, I am not certain. Just as you saw in the rise of fascism in Europe in the 1930s, there is an unholy alliance of corporate oligarchs and right-wing politicians that are exploiting the fears of the average American for personal power and profit. And fewer checks and balances seem to be able to counter their ambitions. Although, once in a while, our system of laws reveals itself to be surprisingly resilient. The next few years will certainly test its limits, and no doubt ours. So amid this turmoil, where might we look for guidance and inspiration? What could we do internationally, nationally, or locally to make a difference? You might be surprised to learn that today we are in between two relevant United Nations annual milestones. International Human Rights Day, which was observed on December 10th, and International Migrants Day, which will be observed on December 18th. According to the United Nations website, Human Rights Day commemorates the signing on December 10, 1948, of one of the world's most groundbreaking global pledges, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This landmark document enshrines the inalienable rights that everyone is entitled to as human beings, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, language, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. And in a similar spirit, the website says International Migrants Day gives us a special opportunity to shine a spotlight on the invaluable contributions of millions of migrants around the world. It is also a day for us to highlight the increasingly complex environment in which migration occurs. The evidence is overwhelming that when migration is managed safely and strategically, it can be a powerful force for good. I do think the United Nations has value as an institution, and it is made up of lots of good, hardworking people filled with good intentions. And the UN is important in peacekeeping missions around the world. But when you consider the situation in a place like Gaza, the UN seems incapable of ending the strife and suffering beyond offering platitudes and non-binding resolutions. And even those frequently fail to make a powerful statement because the United States often uses its veto power lest we offend our so-called allies. Sometimes the language of the United Nations Charter and other declarations seems hopelessly optimistic and naive. Something like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an important expression of human ideals, but it is more inspirational than practical in application. Living such ideals into being is much harder. At the federal, state, and local level, elections are important, and we can advocate for laws that advance our values and protect marginalized groups. But the process is messy and frequently disappoints, as we know too well. We must keep trying, though, and it helps to take a long view about the progress of history sometimes. I'm reminded of a poem titled "The Future Not Our Own," which was read in 1980 at the funeral of Archbishop Oscar Romero in Nicaragua, who was murdered by authorities as he was celebrating Mass. In parts of the poem it says, It helps now and then to step back and take a long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it is beyond our vision. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing this. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning. We are workers, not master builders. We are prophets of a future, not our own. For over half a century, Unitarian Universalists have explicitly affirmed the inherent worth and dignity of every person as the first of our guiding principles. And we included similar language in prior statements of our faith for more than a century before that. The idea that all people are valued and deserving of equal rights is fundamental to our faith, regardless of race, gender, identity, orientation, creed, social status, or any other characteristic that makes us unique as fellow human beings. We do not privilege one kind of person over another, though sometimes we have fallen short of our professed convictions. And when we take our faith seriously, we simply can't stand by and watch as others who do not share our values deny the inherent worth and dignity of some people, either here or abroad. As individuals, or even as a denomination, there is a practical limit to what we can accomplish. But by working with other groups on critical justice issues like ending slavery, civil rights, and marriage equality, Unitarians and Universalists have historically accomplished much more than our numbers would predict. We may be a small movement, but we showed up when help was needed. And unfortunately, we even shed blood in some cases, and a few paid the ultimate price. I pray that such sacrifices will never be necessary again. But we can't ignore what is happening in the world right now. It can feel overwhelming. But we must rise to the occasion and do what we can on every level where we can make a difference. All families are holy families. And we celebrate this fact by recognizing their inherent worth and dignity, their fundamental human rights, whoever they are. As I said in the beginning, I like the opportunity for reflection that the Christmas season offers. And the traditional music of the season has a special capacity to call forth deep feelings, perhaps cherished memories about your own Holy Family. I chose the two carols for our service today, not only because I like them musically, which I do, but because each has a message that I believe we can take to heart when we reflect on the current challenges we face on human rights and defending the inherent worth and dignity of migrants and others worldwide. The lyrics to our closing hymn, "It Came Upon the Midnight Clear," were written in 1849 by the Unitarian minister Reverend Edmund Sears, and they expressed his concerns about peace in the aftermath of the Mexican-American War, which ended a year earlier. It is worth noting that there is no mention of Jesus or Bethlehem in the carol. Rather, it speaks about the need to reach below the noise of battle and strive to hear the angels sing. They're there, at least metaphorically, despite the worst instincts of human nature. There may be no heavenly host like the one in the Nativity story who can reassure us by saying, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy." But they are still singing their hope to us if we listen carefully. I chose our opening carol, "Once in Royal David City," for similar reasons. Each of the four verses begins with a reference to the mythical nativity story, but then it transitions to a kind of prayer that connects the story to our present life, something rooted in the real, familiar human world. So may we, when life turns hard, find in love our stay and guard. So may we this happy morn honor every child that's born. So may we our gifts bestow, whether we be high or low. So may we, with hearts that sings, share the truth this season brings. It is a testament to the mythical truth of the story that reaffirms the value of each of us. And incidentally, most people don't realize that royal David's city, the city of Bethlehem, is located today in the Palestinian territory of the West Bank. Ask me any time why I'm confident that Jesus of Nazareth was not actually born in Bethlehem, but in Nazareth. But I don't let it spoil a good story like the Nativity or the many carols that sing of Bethlehem. Palestinians in Bethlehem share in the suffering of their people. And I wish that more Christians would think about this when they speak of putting the Christ back in Christmas. The Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem might be a good place to start. So let us extol the inherent worth and dignity of all people in this holiday season and acknowledge our anxieties and fears about the work that lies ahead of us. Let us do what we can to guarantee the rights and freedoms of all and defend those who need our help. It is my wish that the spirit of the season will move hearts around the world toward greater tolerance and compassion, and that we all recognize our own prejudices and help others to do the same. As we reaffirm every Sunday, love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. May it be so. I invite you now to rise and body your spirit once again and join in singing our closing hymn, number 244, It Came Upon the Midnight Clear.
It came upon the midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth, go all goodwill. From heaven news we bring, the world in solemn stillness lay, to hear the angels sing. Still through the cloven skies they come, with peaceful wings unfurled. And still their heavenly music floats o'er all the weary world. Above its sad and lowly plains they bend on hovering wing, and ever o'er this Babel sounds the blessed angels sing. But with the woes of war and strife the world has suffered long. Beneath the angels' strain have rolled 2,000 years of wrong, and we who fight the wars hear not the love song which they bring. Oh, hush the noise of battle strife, and hear the angels sing. For lo, the days are hastening on, thy prophet
closing words of the poem, Now the Work of Christmas Begins, by Howard Thurman. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music in the heart.
Please join me in reading the words for extinguishing the children. We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our